Tonight, we're highlighting what some are calling a national humanitarian crisis that honestly isn't getting enough media attention. Missing and murdered Indigenous people. Native people go missing or get killed, and in too many situations, their cases go underreported and unsolved. California has one of the country's highest number of incidents of missing and murdered Indigenous people. In tonight's Main Point, we're sharing the story of one Northern California woman and the pain that her sister's death has caused. Engagement producer Gilbert Cordova and I worked on this story together about a crisis happening in our own backyard. And a warning, some parts of this are hard to hear and see.
The term missing and murdered Indigenous women, it stands for everything that I am. I am a woman, I am a mother, I am a daughter.
Marlena Alva is the sister of Jessica Alva, who died 3.5 years ago after what her family says was an incident of domestic violence.
You know, they classified it in the end as a suicide, and we know that that's not true. She was a loving mother. She had 6 kids. You know, she had a beautiful life that she made here in San Francisco.
In April of 2019, Alva was found hanging in the Bayview apartment she shared with her boyfriend and kids. She was taken to the hospital where she died days later. Family members say they believe Alva's boyfriend beat her and hanged her, then waited to call 911. They point to marks on Alva's body, among other clues, and say this was no suicide.
In my sister's case, things were done wrong from the very start.
Marlena Alva believes investigators dropped the ball.
The investigators are not asking questions to the right people. They're not following up. They stigmatized her, I believe, as low income. You know, is this somebody on welfare? Is this somebody who is a recovering addict? Is this somebody who has a past? All these things in the system start to devalue somebody's life, which is not okay.
She counts her sister among the missing and murdered Indigenous women whose cases go underreported, underinvestigated, and often unsolved.
Who decided whose life has more value? When did I become less than? When did my sister become less than?
ABC 10 reached out to the San Francisco Police Department to get an update on Jessica Alva's case. A spokesperson replied saying, "We can confirm the case is open but inactive, and we are not able to comment further." We also reached out to the San Francisco Medical Examiner and were told we needed to purchase the medical examiner's report on Alva's death, which we have done. We're waiting for that to arrive. The Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women movement is an effort to raise awareness and resources
to address the crisis that's impacted us in California, but it's also impacted us across Indian country, across the nation.
Joseph L. James is the chairman of the Yurok tribe, which back in October hosted the first ever Northern California Tribal Summit on Missing and Murdered Indigenous People.
We're living in it right now. We're being impacted by people going missing within our area. It's unacceptable. It shouldn't be accepted anywhere, not just here in California, but across the U.S. And again, we're fighting this fight head on, and we're rallying our people here in California and also our legislators here.
Legislators like Democratic Assembly member James Ramos of San Bernardino, who was the first California Indian to be elected to the California State Assembly, according to the biography on his website.
Representation truly does matter. We're tackling all these issues that is important to our people and important to our ancestors.
He points to the passage of Assembly Bill 3099 back in 2020, a law that aims to improve and track the investigations into missing and murdered Indigenous people in California. It also launched a study that will culminate in a report to the legislature about how the state should better address this crisis.
Since the time of colonialism, there was an exchange of Indigenous women's bodies for stolen land. And so we see those continuing effects today.
Morningstar Galley is the project director with indigenousjustice.org.
From the Urban Indian Health Institute, in 2016, 5,712 Indigenous women and girls were reported missing. There were only 116 reported into the Department of Justice database, and that murder is the 3rd leading cause of death for Indigenous women.
She's not gone, and she's not forgotten.
Alva says she harnesses the pain of her sister's death
to fight for her justice, to fight for all of our missing and murdered Indigenous relatives.
And our engagement producer, Gilbert Cordova, joins us now. Gilbert, you've been spearheading the story from the beginning. I know this is very personal to you. Talk about that, please.
Well, thank you for having me. And growing up in Arizona and being Native American myself, growing up on a reservation, being in Tohono O'odham and Pasquayaki, missing and murdered Indigenous women, or MMIW, is right in front of me all the time. And especially like I was talking earlier about a colleague of mine from college, his brother is actually missing. He's actually Indigenous too. And then our newsroom got an email about someone else missing who's Indigenous. So this is happening right now. Even though our report is done, it's going to continue happening.
Yeah, like you've said, and like people we've interviewed have said, this is happening right in our backyard. It's not something that's happening in a different state, in a different country.
Right.
It's happening here. Talking about solutions, we know Governor Newsom just this fall signed into law something called the Feather Alert. Talk about that.
Yeah, briefly, think of it as a silver alert or amber alert. So when someone Indigenous goes missing under suspicious circumstances, they're going to put this out.
Gilbert, I know you did a longer interview with Marlena Elva, the sister of Jessica Elva. You can find that full interview on our website, abc10.com/to-the-point. And again, Jessica Elva's family says her death was an incident of domestic violence. If you need help, the National Domestic Violence Hotline is taking calls. The number is on your screen, 1-800-799-7233. You can also chat with someone online at thehotline.org.